Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Sports Live with Steve and Justin. How are you, Justin?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
I'm good. There we go. I
There we
needed to
are.
push a button. Um, we're there on the side, but we're not there in full when I don't bring back the intro. Um, so we've had quite a week, I have to tell you. I mean,
Certainly.
we went from having a couple of subscribers on YouTube to having a couple of hundred subscribers on YouTube.
Fantastic. And thanks to
It's
all those for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And then also we are now on my Facebook page broadcasting live as well as we're on X. Those don't have dedicated accounts yet with the name of the program, but we are out there. X does something interesting. They allow you to schedule a live, but they don't allow you to tell anybody about it. So when you go live, it becomes live.
Interesting. That's nice that we had some growth. And
Yeah.
I would like to say thank you to you for having me on these past few weeks. I got a lot of positive feedback from friends who are encouraging both of us to keep going because they're enjoying it. So it's nice to hear that.
Well, that's good. Well, most of our views, and I think last time we had a few live, but a handful, most of our views are after the fact. And to say, so I ask everybody to like and subscribe, whether you're listening to us live, whether you see the recording after the fact on YouTube, or um, whether you see us or hear us on the recordings. We're all on audio version of the podcasts are on every streaming service. So Apple, Spotify, all the little ones, Amazon, we do them all. The only thing we're not on is iHeart. For some reason, I chose not to do it, and I apologize to the iHeart people. But I will. So that's been good. So keep going, like and subscribe. Maybe we could do a little advertising or something. And before we get into football, and I know we have a lot to say about football, I did want to mention this something I mentioned to you. I mean, just a few minutes ago when we came on, I was watching the Met game on Friday night, and this is probably a lead in to officiating everywhere. And I have a pet peeve, and I know we've never talked about it or spoke about it. My pet peeve is umpires, especially in baseball, and it was way more prevalent when umpires were when there were two separate unions for both leagues.
Yeah.
I think it was way more prevalent, and I think that umpires put themselves in the game. They decide they're going to take some action about something. I mean, to me, umpires should be seen and not heard. I mean, other than making decisions, but they shouldn't go out of their way to put themselves in a game. And I thought that's what happened Friday night. And I was watching the Mets game, and um, there was who was up? What was his name against the Texas Rangers? And Degrom was pitching, and we all know he's the former Mets player. And McNeil was at bat, and it was a full count. There was a fastball at the bottom of the strike zone from Degrom. Did I think it was low? Yes, I thought it was low, but the umpire called it a strike. Degrom, and it happened very quickly after being called out. He threw his helmet on the ground, and and lo and behold, the umpire, whose name is Scott Barry, ejected him
Threw his bat, slammed his helmet, and just got the hook.
and got the hurt. Now, this is the first ejection of McNeil's entire career.
Yeah.
And it seemed to be that the umpire, and it seemed to be while watching the game, and I'm not talking about what I read afterwards, that umpires routinely, some umpires anyway, routinely get involved in what's going on in and I don't go for it.
Yeah, it's definitely taken on, you know, a new face. For such a long time we had to suffer with Angel Hernandez in baseball games, and the guy was such a diva, and clearly he was, injecting himself into baseball games and having an effect on the outcome of games. And Major League Baseball ignored it for a very long time. He sued Major League Baseball, but in this particular case, a couple things. McNeil, as far as I know, is a really good ball player. He's a wonderful teammate. He's well liked. You know, um, he's not that guy, right? Like, he's not a diva. He's not a guy that's going to show up the umpire. Um, you have to allow for baseball players. I mean, this is their livelihood, to be frustrated and disagree with a call.
And they were losing, and they
And
were frustrated because
yeah,
they looked like
they were losing that game 6-0 before DeGrom even took them out. So
right.
I imagine his frustration was probably already at a peak level, if not,
I
you know.
agree.
And it's funny because on plays that are reviewable, you never see anybody get ejected from a game arguing they were safe or out. It's always the home plate umpire and balls and strikes. Now, I know they changed the rule. You're not allowed to argue balls and strikes. They're just asking for, you know, trouble, and they're giving umpires a reason to inject themselves into the game where they just shouldn't have that ability. If it becomes abusive, obviously, if you bump a touch or spit on an umpire, that's unacceptable. When I was growing up, I had some really smart, awesome baseball coaches, and I was fortunate to play for a few guys that I really love. Charlie Lightsey was my varsity baseball coach. He was a teacher in the school system for many years. I've known him since I'm 5 years old. He taught us how to argue balls and strikes without saying a word. If you thought the ball was outside, just draw a line in the dirt and get back in the box. And that'll let the umpire know that you disagreed with the call and you're just adjusting your strike zone. Or if it's inside, draw a line in the dirt, step back off the plate, get back in the box. I saw a baseball player do that a few years back in the minors, and the guy got ejected. And I thought to myself, if you can't even do it without saying a word and you're going to get ejected, the umpire lost his mind. He took off his mask. You're not drawing a line. Not in my game. You get out of here. Draw a line. Get the hell out of here. And I just thought to myself, what recourse do you have to contest something that you think is wrong? Because it's a mental game, too. You're going to let the umpire know, I'm not happy with that call. You better smarten up. And even managers can't, their hands are tied. As soon as you start arguing, you're out. A few years back with Brett Gardner, he got called out. He went back to the dugout and he was pounding the bat into the roof of the dugout, and they threw him out. And I thought to myself, this is really unfair. I mean, there's no, as an umpire, you have to be, you can't take sides. You're taking sides. You need to be objective and ignore that stuff. You have to be above it. I thought that I think it was a Snickers commercial where the guy was watching TV and his wife was screaming at him, and then he's an umpire and then he's taking and yelling and screaming from the managers, and he's just sitting there, and then all of a sudden it's still him, but his wife is screaming in his ear and he's just ignoring her. I thought that was hysterical, but that's how umpires should be. Just ignore it.
Walk
Unless it
away.
gets physical or
Turn around and walk
personal,
away.
turn around, walk away. Right. If the verbiage or the language is abusive and it's, too much, all right, then maybe the guy needs to get thrown out so it doesn't happen again. So it's in his mind, but throwing the bat, slamming the helmet out of frustration, you got to let that go. You can't jump on that.
I agree. Agree 100%. And that's a little bit of a fade into some of the officiating going on in the NFL. I think we saw a lot of. We saw, something I have a pet peeve for that I don't really like, and that's the tush push, whatever. I don't even like the name. I think if they gave it a different name, maybe I'd like it a little more. But I don't like the idea of
We used to just call it a quarterback sneak.
right, of somehow aiming a quarterback and pushing them through. I mean, it's all going to be legal until somebody, shoots their eye out and somebody gets really hurt.
Well, it'll change if somebody loses a game that they don't want to have lose an important game.
Right.
But right now, the Eagles and the Chiefs and whoever else, the darlings of football, and it's not going to change.
I mean, so there were two of these plays, and you could clearly see when they went on as the offensive guards together leap forward to block before the ball's hiked in both plays. As you're looking at this happen, you can see the official on the sideline watching what you're watching from the other side. Yeah. And they're letting it goes on.
They're paid to watch for that, and they still don't get it, which calls into question a whole other.
Both guards, both times, and it makes me believe they're being trained to do that by whoever in their team. And I also think that we all know it went to the rules committee or the competition committee or whatever the heck they talked about it, and they chose not to make it illegal, the tush push.
Apparently, it was a big debate among the owners,
right?
And it was not. It was heavily contested by a couple of owners.
And in the end result is that nothing happened, and they didn't change anything, and that's the way it is. And part of me believes that this is the officials reacting to something they wanted changed. So they're letting these offsides go on till it comes to a point, almost like they're forcing the owner's hand.
Where it has to be legislated?
Yeah.
It's interesting. I don't necessarily have a problem with the play. I haven't heard an argument against it that I would stop and say, that's a good point. They shouldn't do that. The difference between, I guess, the tush push and a quarterback sneak is that when it's a quarterback sneak, you don't know it's coming.
Right.
You may think it's coming. But they're lined up in that formation. Everybody's tight. They're gonna, I don't know that it's any different than handing off to a fullback or running back and having, the setback push him through the line of scrimmage. Some guys are more equipped to do the push than others. Even, if you look at Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts, so this is probably the two biggest offenders in this case. Josh Allen's really tall, so he's kind of handles it differently. He can go above his lineman to reach across to get that marker, whereas Jalen Hurts seems to have to sneak in through the tackles or behind somebody, and he uses that push a little more to his advantage, I would think. But I clearly remember there being a rule where you could not push somebody from behind to gain yardage. So I don't know.
Or climb over anyone.
Or climb over anyone. So, it's probably something that they might have to look at more. I'm you know me, I'm a traditionalist. I'm not for rule changes. I think we saw enough result from that this weekend with some of the rule changes. But this one it's not going anywhere for now. And you have to wonder where it's headed.
It's funny because you can't climb up on somebody or push someone to block a field goal, right?
Right. But which we saw in the Denver and the Colts game last night.
Yeah,
that was pretty. It's remarkable because it is a rule. I tend to agree with that rule. I mean, I wasn't very good at long snapping, but I did play center, and I can understand, especially in the NFL, wanting to protect the center, especially the long snap. Excuse me, specifically the long snapper from sustaining any sort of terrible injury. Um, because they start out in a terrible position. Their head is down. They're not even looking forward. They're looking through their legs, kind of thing. So they took the player off the center. Um, you're still allowed to rush, but you're not allowed to line up directly over the center. What's happening is these guys are crashing down on the center before he can get back up, and they're leveraging him for somebody else to either jump over. The Giants did it a couple of years ago, and it
Right.
wasn't called. Um, so they haven't perfected the rule, or they just haven't enforced or educated the referees enough to enforce it correctly.
Right.
Because once you start enforcing something correctly, they stop doing it. But it also has enabled kickers to kick 60 plus yard field goals like they're nothing. 40 and 50-yard field goals now are chip shots for these guys because the kickers don't have the timing is different, right? They don't have to rush the kick. They probably get close to half a second more, which is an eternity for a kicker not to have to rush his kick. And that makes a huge difference. They can blast off from 60 yards.
Right.
So I'm assuming it's increased scoring, perhaps. Um, it's certainly changed the complexion of these games, especially at the end. We saw it last night with the late game. What was Minnesota and Atlanta when they let them score? I mean, I know field goals weren't a part of it, but knowing that you have that in your arsenal, it changes the way they coach the game for sure. I think we're going to see a 70-yard field goal at some point this season.
I mean, what I found interesting in last night's game, since you brought it up, is you can't decide if, which is rampant throughout all the NFL, except for a few teams, you can't decide whether the offensive line is so bad that you can't believe it, or are the defenses that good? In that game, it may have been a combination of the both, but the offensive line. I mean, Minnesota's offensive line. There's no way your quarterback survives being being sacked 5 or 6 times.
These guys are, yeah. I mean, it only takes one shot, and JJ's out now 2 to 4 weeks after last night. He got hammered.
Right.
Um, he took. I think he got sacked 7 or 8 times last night. I mean, they just kept coming,
Ridiculous.
and yeah, and there was a few times that Phoenix uh, got dropped, and it looked like a jailbreak, and that I
I,
think
I think
is
there was something like 11 sacks all the way around.
I believe that. Yeah, that's a lot of sacks for a game. If you like defense, it's great. I just like guys that make plays, so I like it one way or the other. Except when it happens, obviously, to your team. But you know, it it's a lack of I don't want to say there's a lack of talent in the NFL, but you can't rotate in offensive linemen the same way you rotate in and out defensive linemen. There's
Right.
just no continuity if you do that. And in the NFL, I think they have a problem. I think it's been a problem for quite some time where, offensive linemen are like the first ones cut from the roster to save money. You can go back to the Jets. We talked about it, I think, on our first podcast when they couldn't afford, or they said they couldn't afford to pay DeBrickashaw Ferguson and Nick Mangold, and they both retired. Um, Now that was a personal choice for them, but they wanted more money to come back, and I think um, the NFL has to address that because offensive linemen are just a different breed altogether. They're not skilled guys that are going to run and score touchdowns and make plays and all that, and it's kind of the unattractive or unsexy part of the game for the secondary and tertiary markets that are watching. For
Yeah.
football guys, we love seeing that stuff. We love terms like hog molly, right? And
What about
um,
Kelsey's brother? I forget his first name off the top of my head, but
um,
I mean, he became famous when he stopped playing.
Yeah, Jason Kelsey.
And he would have became famous. Forget about his brother and his girlfriend and all that stuff. Jason would have became famous without his brother.
Oh, absolutely.
He came in and he let his hair down and he started doing things, and everybody loves a big lineman doing stupid stuff. Everybody
It's
loves it.
big linemen doing anything. If they have personality and character, it just makes them lovable,
He has better
even to their
personality than
teammates.
his brother, and
Yeah,
he was a Hall of Fame player, and at
without
least
question.
I believe he is, and you have to say to yourself, how do you not know about this guy? How do you not? I mean, listen, you pay a lot. Listen, I hate the Eagles, right?
Yeah.
I apologize to Eagle fans out there, but I'm a Giants fan. We have to hate the Eagles. I remember the first time I went down there, first time I went to Philadelphia, um, and to see the Rolling Stones when I was a kid, like 16 or 17 years old, and we're throwing a football out in the stands, and the kid yells to me to show my age, "Hey, Jaworski, throw it over here." And we went, "What?" We went, "What? Who are you talking about, Jaworski?" We like ignored him. We got into a whole thing with these guys because we were Giants fan,
Yeah,
and
friendly banter.
Fred like, "What, Jaworski?" So, and I met Jaworski years later. He was a very nice guy, and he was a good. The thing I remember about Jaworski, and I don't want to get sidetracked, is all the videos of him saying, "Watch this." He goes up to get the ball when they're playing the Giants, and he's looking around to see where Lawrence Taylor is. And you see his head pivoting around looking for Lawrence Taylor because Lawrence always had his number.
Oh yeah, I think he
And
sacked Jaworski more than anybody else.
anybody else, he'd go. I remember there's the one video. He goes, "Son, you got to stay." He gets up and he goes, "Son, you better start thinking about something else." And something to that effect. I may be paraphrasing a little bit, but
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that it's relevant to what we're talking about with offensive linemen because Lawrence Taylor changed the game and made left tackle probably the most important position on the field because you're protecting the franchise. And you can see it every weekend. The teams that struggle are struggling primarily because their offensive line play is not good. And you know, I remember a few years, no, it's more than a few years. It's got to be 20, 25 years ago when I remember the Jets were going into Seattle and Seattle got rid of all five of their offensive linemen and brought in like three guys from Grand Union that were stuffing paper bags. And they completely changed their entire offensive line. And of course, they beat the Jets with five nobodies on the offensive line. But um, that's a problem in the NFL because you want your offenses to run efficiently and you want scoring, right? You want the quarterbacks to be protected and safe. You don't. That's why you're inventing all these penalties to keep guys off of them. So you know, there's a little. I think there's one more thing they could do to protect quarterbacks. But as far as offensive linemen go, there has to be some sort of allowance to pay offensive linemen to keep them because you need the continuity and the structure to run your offense. And I know, injuries are part of the game and contracts and all that. It's all part of it. But the product is suffering. You want to expand from 32 to 40 team, whatever they got their eyes on. Where are you going to find these guys?
right.
I just, they're a different breed of human being altogether. They don't grow on trees
And they get hurt a lot.
and they get hurt a lot. And they are sustaining injuries and so on and so forth. So, you want to protect the good ones so that they can protect the quarterbacks. I know paying a guy more money isn't going to keep him from getting injured, but tell me a guy like Elijah Vera Tucker who can't stay healthy. Once he leaves the Jets, he's probably going to get a decent contract somewhere. Maybe he gets a 1-year deal and he stays healthy, and then he gets a huge deal if he plays well. Even the guys that get injured are still sought after if they're good, as opposed to some guy who's never been injured but he can't play. or he's just a warm body, or maybe he's less talented, or he's not strong enough, or he's not tall enough, or big enough, or whatever. But like you said, they're a different breed, and the NFL has to address that because it can't just be. We're going to get to the point where it's two hand touch, and you don't want that, and you don't want to see the product suffer, and they have to find a way to gear up and protect offensive linemen because that's where these games are won and lost, and that's how you make your money, and it just you don't want to see 5 sacks in a game, 6 sacks, 10 sacks in a game, 5 on each side, whatever. If defenses are good, they're good. If somebody's getting beat, fine. The coaching staff found something and they're blitzing them from all over the place, and the coach can't figure it out. That's on them. But if your offensive line is going out week after week and just getting annihilated and shredded, and there's nothing you can do, and you can't run with a fullback, or you can't use a tight end to chip, or you can't, they can't sustain play like that. They just can't.
I agree. I mean, look what happened to Kansas City in the Super Bowl.
Oh,
I mean, first of all, Philadelphia's defense was all on the money that day.
Well, it's case in point, right? Philly is I think they're the ones that had started this rotation of defense. Oh, the Giants did it too, I think, back when they were winning Super Bowls. They rotate these guys in and out on the defensive line. They have 7 or 8 guys in the hopper, and they rotate them in and out 3 at a time so that they're fresh, so that they can catch their breath. They can make big plays on big downs. You can't do that with an offensive lineman. You just can't. And it shows. And kudos to the defensive teams and the defensive coordinators who know how to rotate these guys in and out. And you could say, well, Justin, if you run a offense with no huddle, or you just get right back up, and they're not going to be able to make these switches. But you can only sustain that for so long. You can't really do that all game.
Strangely enough, the defensive coordinator of Kansas City used to be the defensive
Giants.
Coordinator for the Giants. So of course they're doing that. But they put, and listen, there's injuries, but as you're saying, there are no backups. If you saw the game last night, which you did because I was with you, there were times they were saying, this is like the third string offensive lineman they put in. They were saying that this guy was on the practice squad a week ago.
Yeah.
And
once they find that, they're going to come after you,
They always come after you once they see any weakness whatsoever, of course.
And that's good coaching. I mean, that's what you have to do.
That's right. That's what it's for.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe that these teams aren't deep enough, but they need to be deeper in the offensive line. If they're going to spend all this money on quarterbacks, they got to protect them. And if the NFL is not going to protect them, they're not going to make rules. What are they going to make rules that you can't hit them anymore? I mean, what's next?
I think we're going to see that eventually.
Going to have red shirt.
The league is headed.
Red shirt quarterbacks. Anybody who would wear red shirt can't be touched.
Yeah. Got the red penny on. I don't think the NFL is going to expand rosters. The owners don't want to pay as it is. They're not going to pay 6 or 8 more guys. You're not going to expand the roster to, 55, 58, 60. It's just not going to happen. And if they did, they wouldn't be doing it to go get more offensive linemen. They'd be getting, 3 more wide receivers and 2 more backs and a special teams guy. I mean, it would go to the skill positions. So
right, they'd hire some old wide receiver that could go out there 2 times and break on a post. And if you have a quarterback and hit them, they get a touchdown.
Right.
What do they need to worry about anything else? Except their quarterback's getting pounded into existence.
I think one of the things they could do to protect the quarterbacks is allow them to throw the football away without having to get outside the tackle box.
Right.
I think they've over-legislated that, and it's kind of unnatural to the game. You want to protect the just let them throw it in the dirt. Just let them throw it away. Just let them throw it out of bounds, throw it in the dirt, throw it here. Anything can happen. He might throw it to somebody who runs it back for 6,
Right.
But this idea that, look at Patrick Mahomes, right? He holds the ball long sometimes, but he's got the ability to use his legs to find an open receiver or somebody gets open because he can run. But there's a lot of times when he's inside that tackle box and he has to make an extraordinary athletic play to get rid of the football, even if he's thrown it away.
Right.
And the whole idea of, oh, he was in the grasp of the defender. Okay, but it was still a smart play to get rid of the ball. Why
Right.
is that a problem? It's excruciatingly frustrating for the defender, but I don't think if he's in the pocket and he sees the pocket collapsing, he should be able to get rid of the ball. Now, maybe the argument to that as well, if he's going to get hit, but Brett Favre used to throw the ball and run backwards to get away from getting hit. Probably the smartest thing I've ever seen a quarterback do. I don't see them doing that much anymore. And the
Joe
position has
Namath.
changed. A lot
Joe
of guys use
Namath.
their legs to make plays.
Joe Namath used to do. He used to like put it. The time he had that,
Well,
he'd put his hands out after he got in
he
the
would
end zone.
back.
Nobody hit me.
He would back straight up about 10 steps before he got rid of the ball, and I don't think he could stop himself because his knees were so bad.
So I guess now that I brought up the Jets, they were positively abysmal, right?
At least they're consistent.
They really had nothing going on.
So they went from week one looking like they had something cooking, and now we realize that maybe the Pittsburgh defense, with all its King's horses and all its King's men, and Pro Bowlers and Julius Peppers now, and they're probably either not very good or, and I dare say they're not well coached. I think that's a well coached team, but uh, the Jets look good against what we now think probably is not a very good defense at this moment. The Jets played the Bills defense, which a week ago gave up 40 points to the Ravens. And in my opinion, the Jets have maybe not that level of ability in terms of weapons on offense, but they're similar styles. And they have two really good running backs. And the Bills ran the ball down the Ravens ran the ball down the Bills' throats. And the Jets seemingly couldn't get the run game going yesterday. So
It was unbelievable. And you have to think, well, Pittsburgh did really, their defense was horrible yesterday or the day before, or whatever it was.
they did not play well.
Yesterday it was. They did not play well at
Not only
all.
did they not play well, they played against a team that came across the country with a brand new quarterback, even though he had success last year, Sam Darnold, and they did not look good. They were in
Not
their
at
own
all.
building and they got beat soundly. I know it's only week 2, as Aaron Rodgers said. Come on, guys. But, I'm sure Pittsburgh will right the ship at some point, but they have enough talent on that team that they can't be a 9-8 wild card team. They have to take advantage of that Ravens loss. They have to stay ahead of them if they want to win that division. And, that's one of those games where, you can't have a letdown game in a game like that, in my opinion. Unless, and I know Seattle's loaded with talent on offense. I mean, they've got Cooper Kupp, who looked like old Cooper Kupp yesterday. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who I think is world class, wide receiver with
Right.
tremendous talent, tremendous upside. He's only in year 2 or year 3. So they've got 2 decent running backs, and obviously the quarterback is playing well. But they came across the country into Pittsburgh, and I mean they let him have it.
It was unbelievable. And then, if you want to go to my home team, yours may be the Jets, but mine is the Giants. I didn't see much of that game because I couldn't get it where I was yesterday. But you don't know what to say. You don't know what to say.
Well, I think if you look at the first game between Philly and Dallas, you thought, "Wow, is Dallas good? Did Philly won, but are they not as good?" I think what you seen yesterday was Dallas's offense was pretty much clicking on all cylinders,
It looked it.
and Dak played very well. Their offensive line is still really good. I know they lost. I think they lost somebody this week, one of their offensive linemen, but they're still, they're still very good. They've been good for a very long time, and their defense was porous at best. I mean, they were allowing guys to get over the top of the defense. They were playing soft and letting guys run right by them. I mean, they were not playing very well at all in the secondary. Um, I know they had the interception at the end of the game, which I think Russell probably was a miscommunication because we saw in the end, was at the end of regulation where he missed Wandell Robinson, who stopped running in the middle of his route and then turned around and said, I couldn't see the ball. You stopped running before you even looked for the ball. So the Giants have some serious issues that they need to fix, primarily their offensive line. I know that there's rumblings now. We talked about a couple of weeks ago. I said I like Dable, and you were like, "No, I'm not that big of a fan." I said it was more Joe Shane than anything else. Now I'm starting to see that there might be more to it with Dable. That he's starting to, or maybe he has already lost the locker room. There was an argument on the sidelines.
It was horrible. Did
Yeah,
you see it?
yeah. It was was it Bowen? I can't remember the player's name. But he took the guy off the field, and they were moving the football, and he took him off in the middle of the drive, and I, that's a bad look. It's a bad optic. You sometimes as a coach you have to suck it up, and I'm sure there's more to that story. But they just, even though their offense scored almost 40 points or whatever it was, they did not look crisp. They looked great on certain plays, and then they looked abysmal on the others. So it was like an all or nothing kind of game.
Well, I think you win the game and fight with them later.
Right. You got to, yeah. I mean, that's what you're there for. Go win the game. Go win, because Dallas, think about Dallas, right? Dallas won the game. They're going to celebrate, but don't think they're not going to go in on a film session today and say, you guys can't play like this. You can't play soft. You have to make plays in the secondary. You guys can't be back there letting receivers, second and third tier wide receivers, blow the top off the defense. So they won, but I'm sure their coaches are going to get after it. And the first thing they did after the game was they went and signed Jadeveon Clowney. So they addressed their issues immediately because Dallas believes they're good enough to compete with the Eagles for the division. They believe they're a playoff team. I know, the Micah Parsons trade is still everybody's calling it illogical, but not to sound like Mike Francesa, but if Jadeveon Clowney is the Jadeveon Clowney, he's Genghis Khan. I mean, he's just going to come in there and wreck your city and sack your quarterback, and it's game over. I don't know that he still can play at that level after 10 or 11 plus seasons in the NFL. But the guy is talented and is a player, and clearly Dallas address the issue, at least for this week. We'll see if the guy can dress and stay healthy and make a difference. He was certainly formidable his whole career. I don't know that that's going to fix everything, but it's one more weapon in the stash. So Dallas, at least in hindsight, has done the right thing to address their problems. And frankly, I know they played the Giants, and I'm not knocking the Giants, but the Giants' offensive line is not good. They couldn't run the football very well. Dallas seemed to be able to hold or handle the run, but their secondary allowed too many big plays, and that's something they have to address. But that's also kind of indicative of the NFL these days. It's there's no more bump and run coverage. You can't lock up receivers. There's
I mean, let's talk about you talk about Clowney. Think of Von Miller, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, does he play every play? You don't know what effect he's going to have. He's
a luxury to have on your rotation for sure. He doesn't have to play every down now.
So, that he doesn't need to play every down. I mean, they have a good defense, so it's a little bit different. But so does Dallas. I mean, Dallas has a good defense. They have some great players. So, that's really the way it goes. I mean, they need to. I think Clowney. I forgot about him being out there. He's always out there because he doesn't seem to get along with anyone, I guess. But
yeah, he's bounced from team to team, and I guess there must be some uh, personality clashes. Maybe I don't know.
But nevertheless, he is. I think he's going to have an effect on that team, and I think they're going to be glad to have him.
You hope it's a positive effect. He's definitely going to love playing for Dallas. If he's successful, the fans will embrace him. You know, they. I mean, you took away the heart of their defense, the heart of their city. So you can't expect Clowney to fill those shoes right now, but he just has to be himself. And you make a play or two and sack the quarterback, and they're gonna scream and cheer, and they're gonna get behind you.
He can't ruin Dallas any more than Jerry Jones has.
Certainly not. But this is just a typical Jerry move at the same time. So it fits the mantra of the circus tent.
You didn't hear how much they paid him because I'm really curious about that.
I tried before to see if I could find it. I don't know. It's probably disclosed at this point, but I'm sure it's just a 1 year deal, and he's probably going to get a few $1,000,000. I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably more than a few.
I doubt it's like an incentive laden contract. It's got to be in the tens of millions.
All right. So, what do you want to talk about next? So the other thing I wanted to bring up, we went through. I forget. Buffalo.
We could run down the games. I mean, there was a lot of, I think the field goals were big yesterday all over the league. How about Joe Burrow? I mean, the guy's going to be out 3 months. That's a terrible. We just talked about it last week about him being healthy and having Jamar Chase and playing. If he can get back to playing healthy football, that they'll be formidable. They can win that division.
Absolutely.
They went to the Super Bowl a few years ago, and now that's all. You're wondering what the future of his career is going to look like. Turf toe injury that he needs surgery for. Just based on the injury alone, the history of that injury, especially in the NFL, it's never good. It's never good. It seems like guys cannot recover from that injury, and that the surgery itself is, I don't know that it's a. What was the one that everybody had? Liz Frank was another one. You get surgery on your feet, your ankles. It's never good.
It's never good.
And I'm not rooting against Joe Burrow. I love the guy.
Well, we talk so highly about him.
I hope he's able to recover. I don't even want to see him play again this year. I get the surgery, rest, recover, and be healthy for next season. Because if you're going to be out 3 months,
how cool is that?
I can't imagine.
It's funny because when you go to my profile, my picture just says live underneath it. I never looked before.
That's pretty cool.
I'm there holding the microphone, and you click on it, and it comes up, and there we are. Not that anybody's clicked, but there are a few people online, but not many. Few people online, and people. It's so funny because hundreds and hundreds of people watch it afterwards, and the amount of people is and how much time when you look at it, you have all these stats, and one of the stats is how many hours people watch. So they'll watch you 30 seconds or whatever, and I do it too. I start to watch something, it's something different than I thought, and then I turn it off. Yeah. But people are really watching, so I appreciate that. We're going to try to do better things.
It makes a lot of fun, and I do appreciate it.
A lot of fun. So hopefully we're going to work on getting some guests and things in the future. I kind of have finally worked out all the technical things. I think most of them. There are a couple things I'd like to further get, but I think we're out there. We're on a
step by step.
Step by step. Step by step. But certainly there were Cincinnati's got to be the fans that got to be losing their mind.
Yeah, it's frustrating if you're a Cincinnati fan for sure. I mean, although their backup quarterback played very well, and Jamar Chase had a career day, so maybe there's something there. You hope. You don't want to see a team go down the tubes, losing one player, even when it's the quarterback. But
Think about Philadelphia with Flacco and Flacco. It was right, and Carson Wentz.
oh yeah, well no, it was yeah
Foles, Nick Foles. I'm
Foles.
sorry. I always get the two of them confused. I have no idea why, but I always
Well,
do.
Foles wins the Super Bowl, and they say shipped him off.
And they
Well, he
shipped
was
them
also
off.
hurt. I think he had concussion issues, right?
Yep. And then Wentz went down the tube somehow. Somehow he just, I think it was the coach more than him, but somehow he lost a little bit of his oomph. Um,
Yeah, he had some toughness to him, and I thought he was perfect for Philadelphia because
me too.
how he played the game. They made the decision to move on, which you know what they've won a Super Bowl or two Super Bowls, so I can't argue, especially when there's a regime change. If that's not your quarterback, you want to go a different route. Obviously, it's a different run offense than when Carson Wentz was there. So, um,
Oh,
you
I
know,
know what I wanted to mention. Indianapolis.
ah, Indies 2-0. Nobody expected that. Um,
So,
I mean, I mean, I'm not going to get into the field goals. The Broncos kicked a field goal, missed. Lutz missed the field goal, but Indianapolis committed the same penalty that the Broncos got called for on that 55-yarder or whatever it was, 60-yarder. So there goes the rule again, affecting the game, call, non-call.
it's
But
unbelievable. And the NFL,
India's, I mean, like we started off talking about offensive line, they are protecting their quarterback, and Daniel Jones is starting to look like Indiana Jones. He's 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 a different guy altogether.
Indiana Jones.
And he's I think because he's having this success early, it's further shining a light on, or maybe I should use another term, putting Dable under the microscope, because you know we can blame the offensive line play. It's still coaching. And there were times when Daniel Jones just looked lost. And he's a completely different guy right now.
Absolutely. And listen, he spent a year
And
in
good for him.
Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
And but I think of it like this. You remember George, who was the former general manager for there forever under the
And he
old.
beat out the other guy who was their starter.
That's correct, and they drafted him to
And
be
he's
the
drafted.
starter. And Daniel Jones came in there and made his mark. Now you have to say that management in the New York Giants just don't get what it takes to build a team. They don't have that mindset that Pittsburgh probably has or others have, where they go around and they draft these supporting players and build a foundation, I like to say. And so they need to build offensive line, defensive line, and they go and draft a quarterback, and the quarterback's going to stay very. You would think these guys never watched football before,
It certainly
right?
seems that way. Yeah.
You're like, oh no, let's get Tom Brady in here. If Tom Brady played on the Giants, he wouldn't win a game because he'd
He
get
would be hard pressed to
slammed.
find a victory for sure.
So what about this? Don't you understand? And when you see guys, and I think I'll throw the Jets in there, and I probably said this last week too. I mean, when you see the Sam Darnolds and the Geno Smiths and the Daniel Jones go out there and be successful in other places, do you ever think to yourself, "Oh, maybe we need to do more to make them successful"? I mean, isn't that something I would learn if I was a general manager?
Let the players play, let the coaches coach. You got to coach them up. I mean, you can't just throw somebody out there with talent and say, go win me a football game.
Oh no, let's fire another coach and hire another coach. Oh, but we won't hire one Oh, and let's keep the general manager because I actually like having coffee with him in the morning. So,
Yeah.
and listen, I'm more I get so fired up over that the Jets fired their coach last year after he won in front of the owner's friends from England. I mean, I am fired up over that. Not for anything. He's in San Francisco, right?
Yep. He went back. He's
and
the
and
defense coordinator
and
again.
a defense coordinator, and defense looks pretty good there. And better yet, what's his name from New England is their backup quarterback because Purdy's hurt.
Oh, Mac Jones.
Matt Jones, and he had a good game yesterday.
He played very well. Yeah. It's ironic. They're 2-0.
Football, right? All
They're,
things don't fit in all places.
it really is. It comes down to coaching. I mean,
I agree.
look at the Redskins, right? Like when they had RG3, ironically enough, their quarterback's hurt this week too. He's got a knee injury. I'm sure that's got to not sit well with the fans in Washington. They're probably on edge. I mean, you don't want to see a young quarterback get hurt or miss time, but he's being replaced by Mariota next weekend. So, you got to take into account he's playing well, and then this happens. There's nothing you can do, right? But you'll see when Mariota comes in that this coaching staff is prepared for what comes, and they'll probably still win games. I'm not expecting Mariota to be, great, but Washington is a well-coached team, and it'll show, on the field on Sunday. Whereas, like you just said, these guys leave New York, and all of a sudden they can play football. Oh, seemingly overnight. Well, I mean, Darnold did have his year in San Francisco, and I think he was under Schottenheimer there, and he did say he learned a lot. But these guys look like different people. They get these quarterbacks get thrown to the wolves in New York, and it's hard.
Geno Smith, his first year in Seattle, you were like,
oh my goodness,
who is
just
that guy?
Tremendous.
And then Sam Darnold, and
he's in Seattle now, but he was in Minnesota last year.
Yeah, Minnesota.
And they were a good football team. Were they 13-4 or 14-3? I mean, they were good.
I mean, he got pounded in the playoffs, but
yeah, it came back to earth.
But I mean, it's the first time you get in the playoffs. You're a young quarterback. The pressure is unbelievable. It just goes to show he doesn't play well with pressure because he couldn't play in New York, and now he couldn't play when the pressure got turned on in the Vikings. But I don't know.
I think I think it was almost looked like they got ambushed in that game. They just seemed ill prepared, which is a major letdown. But that's also not the first time we've seen that happen to the Vikings in the playoffs. And I'm sure you know all too well, as a Giants fan, you're playing one of the most talented offenses in football history, and you beat them 41-0 in the playoff game. So I know that was many moons ago.
Many moons ago. I remember that game completely.
You got a big one tonight. I mean, the Raiders and the Chargers tonight. That's tonight, right? Yeah.
Yeah, Raiders and Chargers.
Harbaugh is
just to point out, just to mention that I did my 4-game parlay, and that was my 4th game, and I wimped out and cashed in because I won the first 3, and I wimped out just because they offered me good money. So I
a win's a win.
For that.
A win's
a win. I was like, let me cash out, and then I'll place more bets next week. So I took the money, the wimp that I am, and I acknowledge it, and in public like this and recorded. I should have.
Well, listen, now you have more money to place more bets.
Yeah, right. And then what about Tampa Bay? I mean, where'd that guy become a quarterback?
So I think I think he became a quarterback in his first game against the Jets. Was that 4 years ago?
He's got a really good coach, and for some reason the Jets didn't want to realize he was a really good coach.
So they're playing tonight. Baker Mayfield, as good as he's been, is now 1-7 on Monday night, and has lost 7 straight games, I think, on Monday night. I think the only win was against the Jets.
I hate stats like that. I'm like, oh, he doesn't play well in the snow on Tuesday in December.
The bright lights are on Monday night. I mean, all focus is on you.
I guess.
But there, he's got some talent on that offense. The wide receiver from Ohio State, Emeka Egbuka, they can move the football. They're well coached. He doesn't have to do anything special for that offense to move. I don't think they're going to ask him to do anything crazy. He just has to get back in the pocket, find an open receiver, and sling it. I know they do, move the football around, get him out of the pocket to protect him a little bit. They have a decent running back. Um, they are going to have their hands full. They're playing the Texans tonight, right?
I believe so. I was just
Yeah.
looking that up, matter of fact.
Yeah. And Stroud has had success against the Bucks already once before. I think he had a game where he threw 5 touchdowns against the Bucks. Obviously, different team now, but they're also coming into that game with some question marks. But I think it should be an entertaining game, and you root for young quarterbacks. It's nice to see Baker Mayfield figure it out. CJ Stroud, coming along. You want to see him progress. It's hard to believe he's still, as young as he is because he had major success early. You want to see teams like that. For me, a little bit more for the Texans to take another step forward. They've got Nico Collins in that offense, and I'm biased because he went to Michigan, but I think he's a tremendous wide receiver talent. He is, poised to step into that upper echelon of number one wide receivers. And he's, certainly a favorite target for CJ Stroud. So, you might get to see some points tonight, unlike last night when it was all field goals and one touchdown where they gave up the touchdown, they let him score. So should be vastly different tonight. And then who else is tonight? Baltimore? Not Baltimore.
No, Los Angeles, or I'm sorry, the Chargers against
All right, the Chargers. Chargers and the Raiders.
Raiders, right? That was my other bet. I had the Chargers. I should have.
Herbert has had success. I think he's 6-3 in the division against the Raiders. They're well coached. Obviously, Harbaugh. This is a chance for them to go 2-0 and kind of get an early stranglehold on the division after beating Kansas City last week. And the Raiders, with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is 5-4 lifetime against Harbaugh. There's some history there, obviously, going back to I think their college
right.
College face-off. So it'll be an interesting game for sure. I think they probably know each other very well, so they'll both probably be very well prepared for each other. The tight end is out for the Raiders. I think the Chargers are healthy. Actually, I don't know if Bowers is out or not. I think he's a game. I shouldn't say that. I think he's a game time decision tonight, Bowers. But he does have an injury. I think it's a high ankle sprain or something.
Right.
So something to keep an eye on. It should be an even game. I think. I don't know that anybody's, much better than the other. But we'll see. I mean, I think the Chargers are favored tonight, if I'm not mistaken, after beating Kansas City last week.
So to change the subject a little bit and maybe to wrap up with, just to talk a little bit about, I don't know if you had any time to see the fight on Netflix on Friday night. I'm sorry, on Saturday night.
I did not.
Alvarez and Crawford, and there were 4 prelims. It's basically the same way, just not pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So I mean, the payouts, I think they each made 100 or 150 million dollars each. So
God bless him.
they're not really that much different than what you usually get, even though it's not pay per view. And it's funny when I'm watching the prelims, what you see is, this is a Saudi group, um, and you see others. I saw Dan White sitting with him, who runs or owns or whatever it is, UFC, even though UFC is now owned by that TV group, a TVKO or whatever it is.
Are
They
they
also
owned by them, or I thought it was just the rights, the TV
no,
rights?
no. I think they're all. I think they sold partially to them or whatever it
Oh, wow,
was,
okay.
and then um, and they also own the WWE. They bought that from McMahon when McMahon fell into trouble for billions of dollars or whatever. But the TV rights actually they sold to for a UFC to Paramount Plus. So January 1st, all the UFCs are going to be on Paramount Plus, and it's my understanding, much like Netflix, is this pay-per-view model is going to go away, and everything's going to be subscription based, and that's going to be the new. So you're going to have, and if depends what the numbers go up, right? If they don't go up that high, then it's really worth it, right? Because you get so. What I usually do, and a couple of friends of mine, we all meet at a club we belong to, a cigar lounge we belong to, and there's a movie room, and we sit in the movie room, and everybody chips in $20 or whatever it is, and we watch the fight.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's part of it, or why we've always been able to do it. But and I'm sure people stream it illegally and lots of other things, but they obviously make a lot of money, or else they wouldn't be doing it.
Well,
But
if you have somebody with a fire stick, you can get anything, right?
I've heard that, and
It makes me question the money because it's a major flaw in the streaming system. You know, if you have a I guess they call it a jailbroken fire stick, you get every channel everywhere, anytime, including these huge events because they're hacked into a server somewhere that you know broadcasts what you want to watch. So
I think they tell people that it comes from Europe, but I'm not sure. They're just not tapped right into the satellite.
yeah, no, yeah, um, it's definitely being downloaded and processed in a server somewhere. Because if you've ever watched an event on a Fire Stick where you didn't have to pay for it, you're probably somewhere between 30 seconds to up to 2 minutes behind the broadcast live.
Right, right, right.
So that's, I mean, for a crowd of people, 20, 30 guys, 50 people, whatever, and if you're in a club like we are watching an event, or at the Lyceum where we can have 100 plus people when we had the Pacquiao and Mayweather fight, th- they know they know that that's out there, and to pay all that money to own the rights to sell it to a streaming network and the subscribers that are going to come with it. At this point, I'm shocked that everybody doesn't have a Fire Stick because, why would you pay all that money for these different subscriptions when you could pay for a Fire Stick and pay a very small fee yearly to have all of that anytime you want to watch it without having to pay the subscription fee?
Yeah, I have a friend. He pays $15 a month, and he can watch one thing, and it has movies. And I went through it at his house, and I was shocked on what's on it.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's out there. They know it's out there. Amazon knows it's out there. They're selling the sticks, and Amazon is one of those networks that you have to subscribe to get football, baseball games. You have to have Amazon Prime, but if you have one of their Fire Sticks, that's somebody's got access to the server or sells you a
But
subscription to their service.
I think that's part of the strategy.
Yeah, it could
that
be to get everybody off regular television.
but I think it's part of the strategy that if you're just going to a streaming service and you're not paying $90 pay-per-view, that people are less likely to get a Fire Stick. People are less likely because it's access.
It's more accessible.
When you pay $90, that hurts. But if you're paying $15 or $20 a month and you have all the fights and you get to watch whatever you want, I think it's better. I think even though there might not be that much,
Well, it's certainly a more affordable way to consume all this, for sure.
and there's more consumers. That's the key. There's more money to make because you have a bigger herd.
High tide floats all boats.
Right. I think with more people, you're going to have kids watching it, which you may not. You're not having some 14-year-old kid goes to his mom, Dad, hey, can you get the $90 fight for me tonight? That ain't happening. But if you're paying that subscription, maybe him and his friends are watching that fight. And you're going to, something Major League Baseball can't figure out to save their lives, how to get young people to actually watch baseball. But they're going to figure out a way to get
it ain't by making them pay for it, that's for sure.
A massive audience, and the audience is going to get so big. You know how much, like we said, when Ronaldo got signed a new contract, they made more money in T-shirts and jerseys than they made in the stadium. That's where the money is, and that's what I believe is going to change everything.
It's funny to think that we went from having to listen to baseball games on the radio to black and white TV to then color TV, where it was more consumable, but you only had one TV in the house back then. Now you got a TV in every room in the house. That it's almost less watchable and less accessible. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, I wrote this paper in college. It was called Free Speech, the Internet, and something else. I can't really mean it. And I went through how, and I made comparisons. Some of the early legal cases about free speech talked about people riding around with megaphones, screaming things out for elections. You know, vote for John Smith. He's running for town supervisor, and things that. And there became
I'm thinking of the Blues Brothers.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking of. And you have the same thing. You had commercial speech, private speech, what's free, what's not. And what happened, what I extrapolated from that, is that you're going to have so many people, as those cases in the Supreme Court. One of them was called Red Lion. That seems to be the one I remember at the minute. But you're going to have so much out there that they had multiple people driving around in cars, and you couldn't figure out what the hell anybody was saying because everybody's screaming. But that's what you have. Yeah. It's become like noise, and we're part of that noise tonight.
Sure.
So whatever. But there's so much out there, and so many things you don't even know what to listen to. Just like me, I don't watch the news anymore. Why?
I haven't watched the news in years, and I don't even watch TV anymore. Really, I mean, I watch, the game still if I have time, but I consume way less than I did, when I was a kid, certainly.
But why don't we watch the news anymore? Because there's no benefit. We don't
Zero.
have faith into what anyone says. Why the news? Why those hours were carved out? They gave these FCC licenses to the television stations, and they had to broadcast the news.
Yeah.
And the purpose was that we needed an informed republic, a informed electorate is probably a better word, because that gives you great elections. Well, what they did they forgot to say, how about you can't have commercials? Because if you're going to turn into a money-making operation, money's going to start rolling.
Money's going to, and that's going to slant your news. Sure.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. I mean, we can go down that road maybe on another podcast channel.
Yeah. Well, Edward R. Murrow went into it in great detail when they gave him the, I don't know. We'll get into Edward R. Murrow another day. But anyway.
Fair enough.
But that's pretty much what's going on with these sporting events. And certainly I'm one of the crowd. I originally thought UFC was just a barbaric sport. Well, somewhere along the line,
I still
it
do, to be honest.
it is barbaric. But I listen. I'm fat and old. But when I was in my 20s and 30s, I fought all the time, probably every week. Martial arts, whatever. I trained with one of the world champions that was taught by um, Bruce Lee,
Bruce Lee.
Joe Lewis, and Joe Lewis. We didn't see him all the time, maybe once a month. And I trained with a former Navy SEAL, and I was useless. I mean, there were guys that were really good, but I tried really hard until I got beat up so bad I could barely walk, and then I couldn't do it for a while, and then I didn't go back. But it's become more than just a beating and blood.
No, it's blood sport. It always has been.
It's definitely blood sport, but it's become more than that. It's become
ESPN used to not televise it because of that. That was their reasoning for not televising it. And now you see the replays. They don't broadcast all the big events, but they give you the rundown during Sports Center. When the show breaks and it's over, they come back in and they have interviews. They talk about, round by round and all that. They've got a segment for it on one of their shows, one of their channels, where they talk exclusively about UFC. So things have changed because the market dictated that people wanted to watch this stuff. But again, it's entirely money driven. So there's no integrity, there's no ethics involved. It's just how much money can we make? And that's why I question how it's consumed and how it's broadcast, because there's so much money. I mean, you just said they made $100 and something million a piece last night. For $150 million, I could get the shit kicked out of me for 3 rounds.
Unfortunately,
I probably lasted about 24 seconds, but
well, I watched the movie. I couldn't believe my girlfriend loved it. We watched Warrior with Tom Hardy. Did you ever see that?
I've only seen bits and pieces, but I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I mean, it's got Tom Hardy, Nick Nolte, and
he's great.
He was great. It's like from 2011, and Eddington, I forget his first name, and he's a magnificent actor. He was in The Great Gatsby. He was the rich guy across the water. Shakespeare, and did you see that movie?
I did not. I read the book, but I didn't see the movie.
I was
one of the few books I've read in my lifetime.
I read a lot of books, and I think that book. I think the soliloquy parts of that book are just amazing, where they're talking to you and narrator, for lack of a better term, but he's actually a player in the book, so he isn't just narrating. He's going along, and the opening scene in the newer movie of The Great Gatsby is great because they talk about through the narration. But anyway, I'm getting off subject. Anything else before we end today's show? I think we could call it.
I mean, we could run down next week's games quick if you want.
Yeah, let's do it. You got them in front of you? Because I don't.
Yeah, Arizona is 2-0 at San Francisco. Also 2-0. Brock Purdy's out.
Not for anything. I criticized Arizona on our first week.
We both did.
We were like, are they ever going to get their act together? Well, guess what, fans?
They are poised to take control of that division at 3-0 if they beat San Francisco.
Absolutely.
And with Purdy out, even though Mac Jones is there, I would think that maybe, Arizona. In fact, today they were listed a 52% chance to win by FPI. So, moving along, Miami, terrible at Buffalo. Buffalo is like a 76% favorite to win that game. I don't think Miami has a chance the way they're playing right now. I know they played a little better this week, but they don't look right. Something's off there. And Buffalo.
Something with Tua.
Yeah.
And I hope, he doesn't get crushed by that.
I don't want to see anything bad happen to the kid. I was not a favorite of him being an NFL quarterback, but you certainly don't wish any ill upon the guy. I do think you're right when you say there's something off. I hope it's not what we think it is. I think maybe it's something else. Maybe it's the coaching. Maybe it's the style of play. Maybe it's, you know, the defenses have caught up or whatever.
Well, you
But
hope that coaches didn't say, "Oh yeah, the kid's fine," because they put their neck out for their jobs, and now the kid's not fine, and now they don't want to tell anybody because they want to hold on to their jobs as long as they can. I
yeah,
hope that's not the case.
yeah. Then you have Cincinnati, Minnesota. Minnesota's a favorite, even with JJ out. At least that was this morning. They were like a 58% probability. Um, Pittsburgh, New England is interesting. Pittsburgh 1-1. It's a pick 'em. I think New England is a slight favorite at 50% plus. Um, but that is an interesting game to keep an eye on because that will, I think, give you more of a barometer or a metric on where both teams are headed. Um, you know, these games that are 50-50 probability games always seem to end up as a blowout, but uh, we'll see who's for real and who's not in that game, I think,
Right.
especially after Rodgers' comments, you know, oh, it's great to beat anything associated with the Jets. And then it's, oh, well, we lost. It's only week 2, guys. Give us a break, which he's right. But, you know, they pay you to win games. Go win this game. This is a game I think Pittsburgh has to win, even though it's only week 3. Another 2 teams going in 2 different directions. Indianapolis 2-0, Tennessee 0-2. Tennessee's got some pretty good play from their young quarterback. I think they have a future there. Cam Ward is a player. That throw that he made going to his
Oh,
right and back across the other side of the
we
field
forgot to talk about that. That was
for a
a
touchdown.
throw. I mean,
Incredible throw.
when you see announcers like on ESPN, they're like, people aren't supposed to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's like a 16% probability that is a completed pass.
And
That's
not only is
not a
it a
high
completed
percentage pass.
pass, it's on the money,
In
like
fact,
target.
I think it's a higher percentage that pass gets intercepted than it is completed. You got Houston who's playing tonight. They're already 0-1 against Jacksonville 1-1 next week. We'll see what happens tonight, I guess. Jacksonville hasn't been playing terrible. They're
No.
not the doormat like they've been. I know they had some issue this weekend with Trevor Lawrence waving off one of his coaches after a play. But you know, that'll be an interesting AFC matchup. That game could be a shootout.
I heard
There's a
that about.
lot of offensive weapons on the field in
Did you
that
see
game.
that video of him waving off? That can't be good, boy.
It's not good. But you know what? He's a veteran quarterback now, right? He's been in the league 4 years, 5 years.
Yeah, but he's not Tom Brady.
He's not Tom Brady. But if he's confident enough in himself to wave off the coach and say, "Calm down, I'll handle this," I'm okay with that because he has to still progress. He hasn't been as good as we thought he
Right.
would be coming out of college. So who knows? Maybe that'll light a fire under both of them and they'll get it together. Atlanta, Carolina. No, we did that already. Sorry. Rams are 2-0. Phillies 2-0. Phillies at 58% probability to win that. I think that game is in Philadelphia.
What's the difference?
I think another game where teams coming across the country to play. You might have to fact check me on that. I think that game's in Philly. The Rams are formidable. I mean, Matthew Stafford with Devontae Adams, and they have probably one of the more versatile backs in the NFL. He can run, he can catch passes out of the backfield. Philly, I think, is going to have their hands full.
Sooner or later, they got to.
Yeah. I mean, this would be a good litmus test to see where they're at because, frankly, I don't think they played their best game yet. They don't seem to be world beaters, even with Barkley. And I mean, they're a great team. Don't get me wrong, but they have some questions still. So this, I think, would be a good gauge to see where they're at, especially against a team like the Rams with a Super Bowl winning coach, Super Bowl winning quarterback. That should be a good game. I'm looking forward to trying to get to watch that game. Jets and the Bucks. The Jets, like you said, abysmal. I'm sure the probability will change after tonight's game, but it was 68% Bucks favored to win that game. today. So that'll be interesting to see what happens after tonight's game. I don't know that there's much interest if you're just an average football fan and watching that game. I can't tell you. Oh, you should go watch. It's going to be, electric. It's kind of a boring matchup, to be honest. Unless you're a Jets fan looking for a quick September vacation, and that if that game's in Florida, you can go down there and enjoy yourself for the weekend. Um, you got Raiders and the Redskins with Daniels is out, but even with Daniels out and Mariota in, Washington was an early favorite at 60%, even though Las Vegas plays tonight. Green Bay 2-0, Cleveland 0-2. I think Green Bay's just going to roll them. They're 70% chance favorite to win. So I don't think there's much to talk about there other than the two best pass rushers in the league. So maybe you'll see some defense there. But I think Green Bay's offense is just going to steamroll Cleveland. I just don't see Cleveland being relevant in that game.
And their defense is pretty good too.
Defense, yeah. What else? I think what do we have? New Orleans 0-2, Seattle 1-1. Again, not a very sexy game. I don't think people get excited about Rattler at quarterback for New Orleans. They're already 0-2. I know they have some offensive talent, but they're not a very exciting team to watch at this point. I know the Giants, I think, go down there week 5. So, depending on where the Giants are, that might be their only chance at a victory this year.
Right.
Dallas plays Chicago in Chicago, I believe. So that's interesting. Dallas is a favorite, 55%. I thought it would be a little higher, to be honest with you, but I think that'll be another interesting game to see where Dallas is at because they haven't played perfect football yet. And they'll have Jadeveon Clowney, so who knows? Then you got your team, the Giants, 0-2 against the 0-2 Kansas City Chiefs, who are favored to win that game. That game's in New York, right?
I believe so.
That'll be interesting because, the Giants can score points. The Chiefs are 0-2, and I did want to mention this earlier. I know there was that moment in the game where you saw Travis Kelce look at his team and scream and yell, and he said, "I'm sick of this crap." And then when the game is, almost, it's crunch time. In the beginning of that game, I don't know if you got to watch the game, but that game started with Patrick Mahomes, in my opinion, was really trying. You could see he was trying to will his team to win this game, and he wanted to score points early, and it didn't happen. And he had dove for the end zone at one play, and he made a really great play, made a couple of good throws, and it just seemed like he had the will to just drag this team to victory because they didn't want to start 0-2, and it was a big question coming into the game.
Right.
Kelce drops a touchdown pass, or at least a first down on the goal line, and the defender made a play. It ended up being an interception, and I don't expect Travis Kelce to run down a defensive back and make a tackle from behind. But his effort on that play was gross. There's no other way to say it. And you just came off the field yelling at your offensive lineman or your defense, whatever he was yelling at. I'm sick of this expletive. And then you put that effort in on a play where you should have caught the ball and could have got your team back in the game and given yourselves a chance to win, and you're jogging after the guy who made the play on you. It was, to me, that's not leadership. That's a guy who mailed it in. I know he's one of the, he's a Hall of Fame player and all that, but it's a bad look. I mean, that is, if I was coaching and this was one of my seniors or one of the captains of the team, and I saw that on the film, I'd light that kid's ass up, man. I mean, at this level, like he's got to be called out for that.
He's ran in the other direction. He wasn't even looking. He was like a baby, mad or whatever.
Yeah.
And, listen, I don't.
He just gave up on the play.
I don't care about his life. I'm glad he's happy. I'm glad he's doing it. I don't care. He comes in like that guitarist from AC/DC with shorts and a suit or whatever. I mean, I let him wear whatever he wants. I've
all
seen the
fluff.
craziest thing, all fluff. But when you get out there on the field, it's always been 120% for him. It didn't seem like he had it yesterday. It
Yeah,
didn't
that was a
seem
big
like
tell.
his head wasn't in the game. And I think we spoke about this last night. I think there comes a time on all NFL players where they don't have that drive anymore. No matter what your abilities are still hanging around, you still have to be 120% when you walk on that field, or you're going to get hurt.
Oh, I agree. It struck me as egregious because before that we saw him yelling at his team
Right.
that he was sick of the way they were playing and he was screaming at them like it was their fault. And then to give that kind of effort after screaming at your teammates, I'm sorry, that's shame on you.
Agreed. Agreed.
And listen, this is not like it happens with him all the time. I just noticed it because I was watching the game and I thought to myself, man, how many times have I watched film as a coach and you see a kid not, you know, it's different in high school, obviously. You want to motivate kids, you point it out and you move on. If it's consistent, you pull the kid off the field. He's not coming off the field.
No.
He's their starting tight end. He's their team captain, whatever you want to call it. He's a Hall of Famer. He's all of those things. If your quarterback is going to go out there and give you the kind of effort he did on Sunday, running for his life and trying to will you to victory, and you're just going to be a mouthpiece yelling at guys, put a headset on and get a clipboard because that kind of effort on the field is unacceptable.
I agree.
And I'm sure that Andy Reid is not going to use that. The announcers didn't even talk about it. They showed the play. I watched it. They showed the replay. They didn't mention it. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, how are they not pointing this out? Are they not watching the same film that I'm watching?
I do think they said it's unlike him to drop a ball like that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think he had alligator arms or anything.
The
defender made a play. The defender made a play.
Yeah, but the ball, he missed the ball, and then the defender made a catch on the missed ball.
Yes.
It wasn't like he hit it out of his hand. So
that's correct. Yeah.
Whatever.
And then the last game you have is Detroit and Baltimore, which could be an absolute slugfest with all that talent. Both teams 1-1. Baltimore is slight favorite, 56% chance to win. I think that game is in Baltimore. If that game was in Detroit, it'd be a track meet. I mean, with these two offenses.
Yeah. So I did want to change the subject for a minute, if that's all of them. I just want to mention the passing yesterday of Eddie Jockman, the long time New York Ranger goalie back in the day where you didn't wear a mask. I think he was there 65 to 76, which is a long time to be anywhere in professional sports. And then I think he paid like 3 years with the Red Wings. But I did want to mention him. He was a legend. When I first started watching hockey in late grammar school, early high school, Eddie Jockman was just in the end of his career there. And I remember those teams. I remember how he played. I remembered he was a legend.
And played without a face mask. I mean, talk about a different breed. I mean, we started with offensive linemen, talking about them being a different breed. You play goalie in the NHL with no mask. I don't care what area it's in. The size and weight of the puck hasn't changed. That is not an easy thing to do.
So I didn't want it to go by without at least mentioning such a great and probably
NHL
legend, and most of us that remember him are old. So the people that really saw him play probably, unless you were a fan when you were 5 or 6 years old, which I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't. So we didn't watch hockey in my house, and it wasn't really broadcast. So that's the way it was. And that's it, I think. I think we covered all over the bases.
I think so.
So it was good. We're like an hour and a half. So
That's our longest one yet.
it goes by quick, right?
It does.
I hope it was good. We'll see you next week.
Thanks very
Thank
much for
everybody.
having me, Steve.
Thank everybody for listening. Like and subscribe. Thank you for you live people that have been on, and you know where you can watch us. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Take care, everybody.